Hello networkers, and welcome back to another episode of As a Network Engineer. And in this episode, we're going to do another troubleshooting segment. And in this particular troubleshooting segment, I want to talk about a very simple environment with a very simple problem. So this is great. So it's going to be a short video, but it's really a good thing to kind of show people who are starting out and using some of the particular philosophy of how I identify a problem. Now, if you are new to this particular video of our troubleshooting talks, please check out our other video where I talk about troubleshooting and I talk about particular problem points. And I'll talk about that here as well in this video. So what I'm going to do is basically for all of the troubleshooting segments, I kind of thought about this a lot, is that I'm going to break it up into different kind of parts. So I'm going to first talk about the environment, what the environment looks like. So I'll probably either draw it out on my iPad, show a picture on the video, do whatever it is. It's important to see what does the environment look like. Second, I would talk about what is the problem, what is the symptoms, that sort of thing like that. Then I'll go ahead and kind of recap the particular problem points, and you'll know what that means once I talk about that. I talked about this in the first troubleshooting video. I think it was called Troubleshooting Strategies was the episode of that video. And then I'll go ahead and talk about the points of interest, like which parts of the network or the environment should I be looking at for troubleshooting the issue. So I'll kind of bring that up. And then I'll go ahead and talk about how I troubleshoot the issue and how it was resolved. Okay, so we've got a lot to talk about. So let's first go ahead and explain what the environment looks like. And then I'll go ahead and talk about what is the problem and what's going on. Okay, so this is the environment that I want to talk about, and then I will explain what the problem is. Now, this is a very, very simple environment. This is part of a bigger network, but this is a particular remote site that exists, a very small remote site with a very unique requirement. They are located in a location that has a lot of performance issues. So we can't get a lot of high-speed internet or WAN connectivity to this location. That can happen depending on where you're located or the remote sites are located. So again, let me quickly talk about the environment here. So first, we have this remote site has an internet connection that has a managed router. I think it's through AT&T, I believe. And there's like a couple of T1s connected on that router. So that managed router is giving us an Ethernet handoff. And we're basically using a Cisco 1900 series router, one of the G2 series routers with the security license installed. So we have that, and that of course is being plugged directly into the core. So for the LAN, this is a tier 2 LAN topology with a core and access layer switches. We have many different access switches. Some are providing a little bit of server endpoints, but most are for desktop endpoints and IP phones. Now, there was a unique requirement that we added into the environment. We were experimenting with another internet provider that was more of a Wi-Fi connection because the performance here is very, very poor. It's very slow, high latency. So we've been looking for other alternatives, and we found a potential Wi-Fi, which is giving us a lot stronger performance, throughput, latency. We're very happy with this so far. Now, this was put into place because we're having issues with the IP with the phones themselves. Because we have VPN tunnels established from all of the remote sites on this network. This is only showing you the remote site, but we have a lot of VPN networks connecting back to the main office. And the other remote sites work perfectly fine. Okay, they have better performance, better latency. It's perfect. It works as expected. But this remote site is not the case. Not the case at all. And voice quality was suffering, and the customers or the users were getting very upset. So you can imagine that we're trying to find an alternative to replacing this. And that's when we found this Wi-Fi provider. But we want to kind of separate things to really, it was more of an experimental thing to actually do and not impact anything on the production network. Because there were users that were actively using the VPN and they were just dealing with the actual pain of things being very, very slow. Anyway, so we have this internet connection and we just plugged in a router. It's an old Cisco router. It's a Cisco 1800 series, the first generation, where this is a G2 series. And of course, that router was also plugged into the core. So this right here was only used for the IP phones, where the IP phones will register with the phone system that is located. We have a cloud-based phone system that this particular office is using. So basically, this was used only for that communication for the IP phones, not for the users accessing the internet. All users and servers are still using this for their internet connectivity. So we have some, you can imagine some special routing here on the core to make sure that the phones always go through here. Okay, so very simple setup. That's what we have set up. It's working great. So now that's the environment. Let's talk about what is the issue here. Now the issue has nothing to do with performance, has nothing to do with the IP phones or special routing or this new thing being added to the environment. So here's what the problem is. So right now, I'm going to show you this right now. This is what the current configuration looks like on that router. And don't worry, I'm not showing you something that I shouldn't be showing you. As you can tell that the interfaces on that router has private IP addresses. Yes, I repeat, they have the WAN facing interface on that router has a private IP address. So this is the WAN facing interface that connects into this internet Wi-Fi. And that meant that if there's a private IP here, this is going through a private network, and then they will have some kind of a firewall with their own kind of NAT translation that's going to be plugged directly into the internet. Now that causes issues because we want to have a dedicated IP for the various services and VPN that we'll be setting up in this environment. So we've been waiting for that, we've been fighting for that, and finally we got the public IP. So now I can go ahead and quickly telnet to that router, change that public IP, and then our plan initially was to replace these two routers with a FortiGate firewall because we don't really use routers anymore that connects to the internet. I use routers more for a private WAN than anything else. So our plan was to replace all of this, use this as the internet connection, have a firewall, we were good to go. Everybody will be very happy here at this location. So again, I want to go ahead and telnet to this router and change this interface to a public IP. However, I was unable to telnet or SSH into that router. Okay, so my first instinct is, okay, someone changed something. Now I'm really ahead of myself here. And basically so now we have a problem. We have identified the actual problem. So what are the problem points? So I know that this issue is either going to be a recent change event, a software event, or a hardware event. Therefore, I look within the topology itself and I try to determine what are the points of interest. Where could the issue be located at? So I cannot telnet or SSH. So I know that the issue could be with the router itself that I'm trying to connect to. But it could also be an issue with the Wi-Fi network itself, since we are connecting through their private network, going through a firewall to access the internet. So maybe they're blocking telnet or SSH to anything to that equipment. That's very possible. So the router and the Wi-Fi network are my points of interest. Therefore, I need to isolate to figure out which one of these is the root cause. It could be both of them, but very likely is one of these particular things. So in order for me to do that, I first confirm, can I try to telnet or SSH through the Wi-Fi, through the internet itself? So basically imagine here I'm right here, trying to do a telnet, can't do it. Try to SSH, I can't do it. Now I could go ahead and try to contact the provider, and I could do that if my second test fails. And that is, well, let's not test from here. Let's actually connect directly into this core. And that's what I did. I actually connected directly into that core switch. And then from there, I confirm, can I ping this router? Yes, it's pingable. Well, I know it works because the phones can communicate out, receive calls without any problems. So I know that's working. So the router has connectivity to the internet and the routing is working. Well, so far, I believe it's working. But again, from the core, I can ping it. But from the core itself, I am still unable to telnet or SSH directly into that router, which meant that either I come in from this angle or this angle, it's still the same result. So I know that now the root problem is with this router itself. And that means that my next step is to observe the configuration and the hardware resources on this router. So we had the console in. So I had one of the technicians, they set up a console for me. So I accessed it remotely. And like anything else, I went ahead and looked at the configuration. Obviously, someone changed something. They either set up an incorrect ACL that's blocking me. Maybe they changed, maybe they're preventing tunnel or SSH and they did it by accident. Very, very possible. So I was confident it was a recent change event. But I'm looking through the configuration that I'm showing you here right now. I'm looking at the interfaces. They look fine. I look at the VTY interface. That looks fine as well. There's nothing here. I mean, this is as simple configuration as you can possibly get to. There's nothing here. So that meant that there was no recent change event. I looked at a previous configuration backup file. They match up. Nothing was changed in this environment. So it's not the first one in terms of a configuration. So I started looking at, well, that means either is a hardware event or a software event is the actual problem. So I look at the logs, I look at the CPU, the memory, maybe there's some buffer failures. I look at very simple stuff like that, before I start doing things like packet captures and debugs. We don't need to do all of that just yet. Let's just take a look here to see what is very obvious. Nothing was obvious. There was nothing in the logs. Therefore, I did what we would normally do in any case if there's something that isn't working, which is we reboot the damn thing. And that's what I did. I went ahead and rebooted the router, and lo and behold, I was able to tunnel and SSH into that router from both sides. So that meant that there was very likely a software event that was the root cause for the problem for why I couldn't access that router. And if it is a software event, then that meant that I was basically encountering some type of a bug. So I could actually look at the bug toolkit on Cisco's website for that. I could try to upgrade the software to the latest based on the features that we actually require. But this is an older router. This is an 1800 series router. I don't have interest of trying to upgrade that. But the point is, the issue was resolved once we did the reboot. So I basically said this is a software event and we just need to move forward a lot faster to replace this environment with an actual firewall that will connect to the internet, which would be this Wi-Fi network with a public IP address. And we're done with this episode. So if you have any questions about being a network engineer or anything in the networking field, post those questions below in the comments and your question will come up in a future episode on this channel. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. That means a lot. And support us at routhub.net. We got a lot of cool training and you guys have been awesome. The Python and our network design cookbook, the second edition, is very popular and it's only because of you guys. So I definitely am humbled and thank you for that support. And until next time, keep networking.